Today, I'm going to walk you through a lesson designed for a 4th grade classroom on theme. The two standards I'll be addressing throughout this lesson are right here, so you can take a peek at them. The first one is determine a theme of a story, drama, or poem from details in a text. Summarize the text. Second, compare and contrast the treatment of similar themes and topics and patterns of events in stories, myths, and traditional literature from different cultures. The first part of this lesson has to do with engaging and inspiring the students that I work with. So prior to even discussing what theme means, I would first show this little video clip, which is actually an introduction to a story by R.J. Palacio called Wonder. So I'm going to show you guys. This is just to get them starting to think a little bit about what we might be talking about.
I know I'm not an ordinary technical kid. I mean, sure. I do ordinary things like I ice cream, I ride a bike, I play ball, I have an Xbox, stuff like that makes me ordinary, I guess. And I feel ordinary inside. But I know ordinary kids don't let other ordinary kids run away screaming in playgrounds. I know ordinary kids don't get stared at wherever they go. I got one wish. I wish that I had a normal face that no one ever noticed at all. I wish that I could walk down the street without people seeing me and then doing that look away. Maybe just what I think. The only reason I'm not ordinary is that no one sees me. But hey, I'm not good at it. You can't exactly blend in. When you were born to stand out.
Alright, so after talking about this video and showing this video, I think the next biggest thing is really getting into developing a thoughtful conversation. What does that look like? We talked about this in our class so many times, like conversation and providing opportunities for them to read a lot are so important. So this is a part of a lesson I wanted to include so that we could really get into what it starts to mean about theme and talk about certain things. So here I have a couple guiding questions. One of them is, what does it mean to be a true friend? After watching this video a little bit and perhaps going through the book, showing a few parts of the book, we could talk about what does it mean to be a true friend? And also, can we tell what a person is like just by looking at them? And I think the last thing to get them to think about what we might be talking about for the day would be, what lessons could this video teach? And I always like to have them guess, what do you think we're going to be talking about? What do you think, based on what we've been doing so far, what do you think we're going to be learning about today? From there, hopefully one of them would mention theme, or if they didn't, I would bring that to their attention. And a lot of times, a lot of misconceptions, which I think it's important to point out, is a lot of times kids think that theme and main idea are the same thing. And by providing this visual, like having us sit down and talk about it and look at it visually, would help them clear those misconceptions from their mind. And right here I have clearly defined each one of these, theme and main idea. So the theme of a story is a moral message or lesson of the story, where the main idea of a story tells what it is mostly about. So here I have opportunities for us to do a think, pair, share, and have students work together a little bit and provide time for thoughtful collaboration and conversation so that they're able to kind of work together first, work with each other for a few minutes, and come up with ideas of theme maybe that they've seen in movies, or other themes that they can think of that they've read about in books perhaps, and also generate some examples for main idea as well. And then this bubble is illustrating that after we do a little think, pair, share for a few minutes, we come back whole group and share some of these and write some ideas down on either side. Next, after coming up with some good examples, hopefully that they have generated on their own through thoughtful conversation, I think theme is really hard for them to understand, and I think providing other common topics for theme would help paint a bigger picture for them to understand. So courage, kindness, friendship, a lot of these might spark ideas like, oh, I remember reading a book about friendship and kindness. And I remember seeing a movie about jealousy, and this is how this person reacted. And this was the lesson, like trying to get them to start to paint a bigger picture is the goal with this part of the lesson. And down here I have stated or implied. And I think this is another big idea with theme, because a lot of the times theme doesn't just pop out. It doesn't just say the theme of the story is, so we would talk about, again, that conversation piece, what is the author clearly coming out and saying it? Because sometimes the author will come out and say it. Other times it is implied, and that's a tricky word for kids to understand. So again, making sure that they see these definitions, making meaning in your mind is kind of an implied thing. It's not perfectly stated for you to see. It's something that you kind of have to infer a little bit and generate on your own. So providing these examples and talking about what does it mean to be stated and what does it mean to be implied is also an important component of addressing theme. Next, I think it's important to look at an example. Still not diving into the text just yet. I'm not going to actually show this video for our time right now, but we all know the story of the boy who cried wolf, and by providing this video and showing this video, it does have a good lesson. It does teach a good idea of theme for this story. So providing this example before diving into the text, I think, is really important for them to understand. And like I said, because of time's sake, I'm not going to show this whole video, but it's just a little visual for you to see. After watching that video, and perhaps students have read that story before, heard that story before, again, questions for them to consider, more conversation. What did the author want us to think about? What idea stays with you? Again, getting them to think more about theme. What was the theme of the story? And finally, what will you remember about the story a year from now? The moral lesson, getting them to really think. What is the theme? Something that they can relate to, something that's familiar to them that maybe they've seen before. I'm sure by 4th grade, most of them have heard of this story, so I wanted to be able to relate to them. Finally, there's the assessment piece. Throughout this whole lesson, I would have acknowledged different types of formative assessment throughout the lesson. For example, asking and answering questions through, raising their hands and participation in the conversation that we were talking about throughout the entire lesson. So I can see who's involved, who's not involved, who's generating ideas. And also through my observations, providing a think, pair, share when they're working together or we're discussing in whole group, I can see who's actively engaged and who's talking, who's giving their input by walking around and sharing my thoughts and saying, hey, that's a great idea. What else can you think of? And again, just through that observation. The next thing I wanted to address would be the last component of this lesson, which would be a summative assessment. This lesson is based on about an hour's worth of time. So it could be a whole group lead lesson for elementary, or it could be broken up into 2 days, but the goal would be about 1 to 2 days worth of instruction on this. And I created an assessment called Show What You Know About Theme, which I have right here for us to take a peek at. But after each question, I put the level at which it was created. So depth of knowledge 1, depth of knowledge 2. I did it to the best of my ability, and I thought maybe we could take some time and analyze it. But you can see, what is the theme of a story? That's obviously recall. We just want to know what is the definition of a theme of a story, depth of knowledge 1. I'm not going to go through every single one, but you can see that depth of knowledge 1, 2, and so on and so forth. Same thing with here, 5, 6, and 7. Now, because I have 2 standards, I have 10 questions, 5 questions addressing each standard. Sorry. So that's the lesson I created on theme, and I hope you enjoyed it.